Hey there, Cash Leads. Welcome to the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast, the top podcast for service-based business owners like you who are ready to sell more services and land 5- and 6-figure corporate, coaching, and consulting contracts. I'm your host, Ashley Kirkwood, and I went from $100 contracts to 6-figure contracts to now running a multi-million-dollar sales coaching firm with my husband. We call our company Speak Your Way to Cash. If you're looking to grow your business with your expertise, this podcast will be your ultimate guide to growing your business, attracting high-paying clients, mastering the art of sales, and persuasive speaking. Each episode on the Speak Your Way to Cash podcast dives deep into the world of sales, marketing, and the operations it takes to grow and scale a service-based business. Get ready to get into this episode and share your thoughts in the free Speak Your Way to Cash Facebook group. I'll see you there. Listen in.
High, excuses low, energy high, excuses low, energy high, excuses low.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Your Way to Cash show, where we have with us Dr. Patricia Anderson of Authentic Transformational Leadership, ATL. We are so glad that you're here. Welcome to the Speak Your Way to Cash show.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let our audience know who you are, what you do.
Okay. So ATL, Authentic Transformational Leadership, that was my research in the doctoral program. I wanted to see what made certain leaders deviate from the path of good to evil. So deviate from authentic transformational leadership to pseudo transformational leadership. So that's where my research was. And in doing so, made some really great discoveries in terms of how to identify pseudo transformational behavior, how to curtail it, what you can do to hire from it, away from it, how you can upskill your leaders, reskill them to be authentic transformational leaders. The one other thing I found, Ashley, is that I hear a lot of leaders say, I'm a transformational leader, right? But there are actually 4 types of transformational leaders. And one of them is pseudo-transformational. That's the bad type. So you don't want to be pseudo. So the research was about how to identify the triggers that make people go from an authentic transformational leadership path to pseudo. So lots to talk about there. But what I do is I talk about that. I coach leaders. I wrote a book about authentic transformational leadership. You know less than you don't know. Transformation, not change, is key to success. So in terms of what I do, the authentic transformational leadership space is where I live. Mm-hmm. And then trying to not upset, but to reset the framework of what change is and what it isn't. So transformation is not change. One is permanent and one isn't. One's reversible and one is not. So,
and give us the example, because I thought that when we talked about this before the show, it was really interesting, the example that you gave for the difference between transformation and change and using the butterfly. So if you could just regurgitate that for the audience, that would be really, really impactful.
Yeah, sure. It's a great example. It's the best one that I could think of. If you think about a caterpillar on its way to becoming a butterfly, it goes through a transformational space. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. It might take a few days or a few weeks. Once that caterpillar has arrived at the state of being a butterfly, there is no path backwards. You got a full-blown caterpillar, full-blown butterfly that cannot revert to being a caterpillar. Change, on the other hand, is temporary. And a good example is at the beginning of the year, what do we all say at the top of each year? What does everybody say? I'm going to do this year. January the 1st, I'm going to do what?
Lose weight.
Work out.
Eat right.
Eat
make more
better,
money.
Make more money. Quit my job. Start my business. And what happens a few days, weeks, months later?
Well, some people do it and some people don't.
Some people don't. The people that do it, they follow an incremental path.
Yes.
That takes them and moves them into better and better future states. The ones that don't succeed are the ones that have a mental assent only.
So I wonder if, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. And for everyone watching, I think it's important to understand the difference between transformation and change, because I want all of you to be able to transform your lives for the better versus just changing. Right. So when I think of change, I think of instant, quick, fast. Like I could just change clothes. Yeah. But I can't transform my body overnight. Like I have to actually go and work out consistently over time, and it takes time. So what you say, one indicator is like fast, quick, easy change versus like slow, steady transformation.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because if you change, you can change back. If you think about when you're in your Word document, you can type something, you can undo, you can redo. It's like a pivot, right? But when you transform, again, there's no path backwards.
So good.
You are where you are. And I use the gym example because I want to work out this year. I want to be healthier. You can make a gym membership, in 5 minutes. And then you don't go to the gym.
So it's easy because you can change from non-member to member, just like that.
Exactly.
But you can't change from unhealthy to healthy in the same time period.
No, it's a consistent, it's a lifelong journey of transformation. And that's why it's not just a mental ascent. Because when people, like your show is very dynamic. You help a lot of women do things. I'm very proud of women like you and to be in your presence.
Thank
right?
you.
So I might be watching and I'm like, oh, look at Ashley.
Right.
I want to be just like Ashley. But what you think about the iceberg, and that's one of the things I have on the cover of the book, you see the tip of the iceberg. You see all the success.
Right.
And you're speaking here and you're traveling there and you've got, you got the bank and the coins, but you don't see the bigger mass underneath and what it takes to show up as that tip of the iceberg. And a lot of people are not willing to invest the time in transformation. They want the quick fix. I want what I see, and it's a mental assent only. Transformation is a belief system and a shift in your mindset that takes you down the path of transformation. Change is just like, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's just a mental assent.
A mental assent.
Only.
A mental assent only. But it's not adopting a belief system.
No, your belief system shifts. It's like a shift. You shift into that space and you continue that path.
Interesting. Really good. So I want to talk about your transformation and hear a little bit about your story, how you became what we see now, like having the book, a traditionally published book, being a successful speaker, getting booked, being booked on various media outlets, Forbes, etc., having a doctorate, really transforming a space.
Yeah.
Take us back to when you first started to utilize your voice. And many people watching actually want to be paid professional speakers. They want to be successful, sustainable entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They want to last past that 10-year mark where they say most people don't make it, or 2-year mark, really.
Yeah.
And then the 10-year mark, there's a big fall off at 2, big fall off at 5, big fall off at 10. But after that, I think it's kind of stabilized out. Yeah. You've had a more than decades long career. Yeah. Where did it start? Where did you starting or having your own business start? And where were you at that time?
Do you have time for this? I mean, it's a lot. What I do want to say, Ashley, you mentioned people want to get paid. I want to mention that when you first start speaking, you may not get paid, but it's called marketing. Your voice is out there, your value is out there. So I find sometimes a lot of people are like, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not going to do it. Or if I'm not getting paid X, I'm not going to do it. But you really got to understand the market. You got to understand the incremental buildup of you having something to say, something of value, and something that people are willing and able to pay for. Because there has to be a demand for it. And that's a true demand. I'm willing and I'm able. Because sometimes I'm willing, but I'm not able. Yeah. Or I'm able, but I'm not willing. Yeah. So you really have to find out who you are. What is your purpose for being here? Like when you were created in this space, what was the divine design? So I implore you to get on that path, because you don't want to be a second Ashley or a second Dr. P or the next Oprah or the next Beyonce. You want to be the first, and the last of whatever. Yeah. So you want to embrace that space of individuality because you have a unique voice, a unique gift, and a unique message. So my path was to find out what that was. And I went through several transitions to get there. I did some acting for the camera. So I got that, that place where I was memorizing scripts and lines and being in front of the camera and, saying things. I would do commercials. I would do those films that you do in the organization, like the training videos and so forth. So I did that. I used to speak in front of assemblies of students at different high schools. I talked about self-esteem and how that contributes to your success and so forth.
And were some of those paid? Yes. And how did you, when you were landing those contracts, when did you first realize you could get paid to speak?
I think when I was doing the schools, and I was getting paid like per person that was there. Oh wow! And that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool. So I like that. I like acting, pays really good as well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a movie that I'm still getting residuals for, and it was like in 2000. So
How did you get into acting?
I got an agent, did an audition.
So
classes.
did you audition for the agent?
Yeah,
Okay.
audition for the agent, yeah. And then the thing about acting is like, it helps you in life because it's like an 80% rejection rate. So you show up to an audition, and sometimes you see, I remember this one young lady that I would see every time, and I knew the part they wanted, and I was like, let me just go home now, because they're going to choose her. Because she's going to embody this, African American, what that looks like. And, different story, different day.
So an 80% rejection rate.
80% rejection.
I love that. I want to talk about that just for a little bit, because I know one of the things that we teach in the Speak Your Way to Cash programs and events is pitching, putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you are getting rejected most of the time.
Most of the time. It's a no.
How did you not allow the rejection of your skill set at the time to become the rejection of you as a person?
It's so crucial, because the one thing is a knowledge. Like, I knew that. They told us up front, 80%.
So you knew the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta educate yourself on the industry. It's not, the other thing about the industry is that the people behind the cameras are making all the money. Okay. It's not because you're on camera, you're making most of the money. Most of the budget goes for behind the scenes. But you understand that you're going to get rejected. You understand and I wrote since I was a teenager. As a writer, you have a vision for what you wrote. Mm-hmm. And that person comes in, may not fit the vision. It's nothing against that person. You might show up and you might remind the casting director of their ex-girlfriend. And they won't cast you. Something like that. It doesn't have to be anything formalized. It's just like, I'm not feeling you, I'm in a bad mood or whatever. It could be one of 1,000 reasons, so you can't take it personally. You just got to show up and know that you did your best. And once you do the audition, forget about it. As a matter of fact, a lot of times audition.
I love that. That's what, like, if you send a pitch, you should not be like, did they respond? Did they respond? Did they respond?
No.
Did they respond? Like, that's the wrong way to approach it.
Yeah, and don't tell people about it, because they'll be asking you, Ashley, have you heard about this?
Oh, yeah.
So you tell them when you get the job, when you book the job.
And be careful what you tell people in the process.
Yes, and then you just keep auditioning. You're not auditioning and kicking back.
And then waiting, right?
No, you just keep auditioning, keep auditioning. So that was my start, I guess, in public speaking and being comfortable speaking about something and being believable about something. And a lot of people don't see that part of acting. They just see the movie or the commercial, but there's a learning that you get about, presenting yourself and so forth. And sometimes
you mentioned believability.
Yeah.
That is critical.
It is.
Because I think that one of the ways that we break trust with people is by not presenting confidently.
Yeah.
And so without that believability, it's very difficult to convince anyone else to do something else. Like, why would you follow someone down a path if they're like, well, I think you should go this way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
And I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you're successful. I believe that you want to help women
to
be the most. I can see that on you. So I'm going to subscribe to it. What are you selling? I want some of that. If you're not in it for the right reason, I think a lot of times we underestimate the intelligence of our customers to be.
Yes, that's so true.
They think like, okay, they can't see through me. They can see the real me, and they can. Yeah, they can. And even if you get away with it for a while, it's not. There's no longevity to it. No, it's not. Mm-mm. So you gotta start there. You gotta believe in yourself, and then that belief will pervade and be pervasive in everything you say and do. And it's not always you pitching. It's how you live your life as well that people see and say, you know what? That's something I like to emulate, or that makes sense, or that gives me an idea. So you're always influencing whether you're doing it intentionally or not.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned, and I wonder about this, I don't know if you can speak to this a little bit, but you had an agent, you auditioned for an agent, and you got an agent for acting, and I assume the agent helped you to know where you should be going to get different things.
Yeah.
For your speaking business, did you start off with like a booking agent for the speaking side?
Yeah.
Did you go with a bureau, or did you just start immediately on your own seeking opportunities?
Yeah. So first, it was word of mouth.
Okay.
Because I would speak somewhere like, oh yeah, we want to have you speak over here. One of the things that I did, and I'm going to tell my age, during Y2K, there's a lot of bad information going out about Y2K, right? The planes are going to fall out of the sky. All your money is going to be wiped out. When nothing of the sort was true.
Yeah.
It was simply 4 digits, 2 digits.
Yeah.
So I saw a need to speak about this, and specifically to the church community. So I got booked on TBN to talk about that. This is what's going to happen. And people were looking for answers. So part of being believable, if you will, is not just staying in your lane, but you look for opportunities. I saw all this bad information going about at Y2K, and I was like, that's not true at all. And my background is computers and technology. So I was able to go. So once you appear on television, that's it. The bookings will come after that. It was just based on that. We want to book you here. Come talk to our organization, speak to our church about Y2K and so forth. And so way begets way, and so forth and so on. So that was another way. Now, I do have my profile in speaking bureaus. We get gigs through that. We have not secured a booking agent as yet, but I think we're trying to. A lot of what I get is word of mouth. Is people saying.
And are you still the one negotiating your speaking contracts, or do you have someone else that does?
No, I don't. Don't do your job is to show up and to speak and to research and know what you're talking about. You have someone else to negotiate on your behalf because it's too personal. It becomes too personal. And the other thing too, you don't want to price yourself out of the market. You got to know what the going rate is. You got to know how to stay within a certain framework so that you're not. I remember when I started my business, this is what people do sometimes. Hope you don't do what I did. I priced myself based on what my bills were. I would say, these are the bills I need to pay every month, so I need to get paid this. And that was not what the market was bearing. You want to make sure you understand how much they're paying or willing to pay. Of course, there are exceptions, but you don't want to price yourself out of the market in anything. Once you become rich and famous and infamous or whatever, you can name your price. But you do want somebody to negotiate on your behalf so you can be objective about your keynote or your topic or what have you. And you don't have to worry about that. And I'm not comfortable with negotiating money. That's not my strong suit.
Oh, you're going to have to come to Speak Your Way to Cash Live.
So PR manager does that for me.
We talk about that because, in the beginning, it's very difficult to get you may not be able to get a publicist or an agent. And so it may have to be you. Maybe you have to put on another voice, do what you got to do. But I will say, for some people, it's an interesting perspective, and it's a good one to bring to the show of making sure you don't price outside the market. I believe there are strategic times where you will price outside the market.
Yes, of course.
Because you're like, hey,
this is what I'm bringing.
This is what I'm bringing.
And no one else is doing it, so this is what you get.
That's it. So it has to be that market differentiator to have that conversation. But again, to your point, you have to be believable and comfortable with having that conversation and know your stuff and actually be able to back that up with some transformational results, because otherwise that won't last either.
So my PR manager does that.
Oh, your PR manager does that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, somebody's doing it. It's just not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like another person. That's your department. And we talk about the scale. We talk about, what's coming up, what the scale should be, what we should put out there. So we have the conversation, but she is who they see when they're booking me. Yeah.
And so when you think about the early days, I know we talked beforehand about sometimes we were speaking at churches, we were doing free engagements.
Yeah.
What was the first large contract negotiation that you heard, like in the speaking world, or when your publicist called you and was like, hey, we landed this, the contract is signed? What was that number for you the first time you were like, okay, this is great. Like, I have arrived a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first it started off with zeros. There's a lot of zeros. And then, you would go to you get a love offering. We talked about a few $100s. I think when it comes to maybe like $10K, where you're saying, okay, so all the schooling and all the tiers and the books and all that stuff, it's finally paying off. I think once you're in that, for me,
the 5-figure,
it's kind of like, okay, it's a good place to start.
Yeah, good place to start for sure. Hey, Cash Leads, I know you're enjoying this episode, but do you have your ticket for Speak Your Way to Cash Live? If not, stop what you're doing right now. Go to speakyourwaytocashlive.com and get your tickets. I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what the event is all about. When I was in that $300,000 a year job, I was like, oh, well, if they paying me $3, I got to be worth millions. If you believe it'll transform people, your primary obligation has to be to sell them your stuff.
I say it every time we come to Speak Your Way to Cash events. This has been the event of our lifetime.
This year's Speak Your Way to Cash live class is aiming to surpass the amount of money that last year's Speak Your Way to Cash live class made after the event. This is the number that was reported for our 7th year, $711,000.
Within a month, I was up there doing a live training for her, and it was a 5-figure live training. 2 more 5-figure contracts came out of that deal.
Allowed me to reach and get my first contract last year right after the event.
I came here and made the investment, and just today, someone in that room heard what I said and provided me with an opportunity. So you cannot miss this.
Invest in yourself to attend Speak Your Way to Cash Live.
When you are speaking to clients and you are getting those contracts, how do you ensure that that client doesn't just become a one-time client, but that you are able to keep working with them?
Great question and great strategy. You don't want to give them everything you have. So what you do is, I speak from this book. I decided that this book was going to be my retirement plan. So this is what I decided.
That's really good.
My retirement. I was like, this is going to sustain me, so I'm not working hard, but working smart. So there's 12 chapters in the book. So I can speak on, let's say I'm speaking about organizational change management, right? And I that's the space I'm in right now, OCM, digital transformation. So what I did was I created this model that married OCM with transformational leadership with project management methodology. So I might come in and talk about OCM, and then the follow-up would be like, okay, now let's see how we can tie that into your leadership and into the projects you're about to implement. Mm-hmm. And so we have this ongoing SLA, if you will, got to be SLA minded, that we give you.
What's SLA?
Service level agreement.
So you go in and you do maybe you speak on a topic that's covered in one of the chapters of the book, and then you can on the back end get like a consulting arrangement with them to continue to support them through the projects they have coming up.
Yeah, one of the things that we do is we do a lot of surveys. As a researcher, I do a lot of surveys. I survey before, during, after, and I find out what else. I find out a lot about the organization to find, are there any gaps? And then I can pitch something later, like, I've noticed so-and-so, let's talk about this. And what do you think about so-and-so? Part of my speaking is I also do training as well. So I can do a keynote speech, but I can also come back and train your executives on DEI, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or some other topic. So or I can also come in and consult. I could be consultant. Let's say you don't have the internal resources for an organizational change practitioner. I can come in as a consultant now and fill that role, that executive role, to kind of carry your transformation through. So I'll have different hats. So it's not just a speaker, but it's a trainer. It's not just a trainer, it's a consultant. And I'm that trusted advisor as well. So coming through, knowing about your business, understanding business.
Right.
First of all, I studied and got an MBA to have the understanding about business. And I mentioned that because education is not for everybody. It was for me because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew what was valuable. An MBA to understand business, technology, because that's the way the world is. And then the doctorate for the retirement plan. So education not for everybody. A lot of people are much smarter than people that are educated. Actually, more people are smarter than educated people. I'll be the first to say it. But just playing these different roles and coming from a standpoint of I'm an expert in this area. And here's why I'm an expert. Not because I'm talking myself up, but I've done this research. I've worked at this Fortune 100 company. These are my clients and so forth. And
you have receipts to back up the claim.
Receipts.
Yes.
I've got receipts. Yeah.
And that helps make it more believable. And I oftentimes tell our audience of cash leads that confidence is based on competence where arrogance is based on air. It's literally based on nothing. Like, so it'd be arrogant to be like, I'm gonna beat Serena Williams at tennis. And I don't play tennis. I don't train for tennis. I don't practice for tennis. My parents didn't raise me to be a tennis icon. Right. But it would be confident to be like, yeah, I don't care who gets on the stage. I'm gonna be able to hold my own. Yeah. I have trained for that for decades.
Yes, for decades.
Decades.
That part.
Decades. Like my parents actually raised me to communicate. So took me to speech camp, debate camp, all over the country, competed nationally, like did it from a very young age and performed early on, like 4 years. I think two or three was like my first ever performance on a stage.
Wow.
Because I did baby pageants.
Oh, wow.
And so, and sang in church and did plays. So all of that is confidence. But I think that sometimes we don't want to do the work in the dark to actually be confident.
That part.
And I'd love for you to talk about the time it takes to become the person that can transform lives.
Wow. You got to go through some things in life. You got to transform yourself. And we all have stories of things that were pivotal in our lives that it was like an inflection point where you made a turn. I remember when I went to grad school and I thought, this is it. I'm going to get this MBA. I'm going to write the ticket. And you always want to, the book is called You Know Less Than You Don't Know, which means that what you know is a lot less than what you don't know. So you always want to defer to someone who has more knowledge and more wisdom than you do. I think a lot of us are self-created or self-reliant, and I don't ascribe to that at all. I ascribe to lean into something or someone that knows more than you know. And doing so, when I got my MBA, I thought, okay, now I'm going to write my ticket. I was working for GE, General Electric at the time. I was like, now I'm going to ascend the ranks of the glass ceiling. And that wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to be an entrepreneur. So that was the inflection point. I remember going to work and I would see the vision, and it wasn't a bad company to work for. And I would see it, but it never got inside of me. I never bought into it. And I remember when I left, the very next day I had business cards because that vision was in me to be an entrepreneur. So that was the first inflection point. And it wasn't like I had clients on day one. It was a struggle. A lot of times I was like, what am I doing? Why not just get a job and get paid some money instead of struggling as an entrepreneur? But I persevered and it paid off. It paid off really well. So once and it was a lot of work. And another inflection point was when I said, okay, I want to retire. I still want to be, economically stable. Yeah. So what can I do where I'm not working as hard? And that was for me to pursue my doctorate and to write the book afterwards. So these points were where I transformed, not overnight, but it was like way leads to way. I became an entrepreneur. Because of that, I met, my Fortune 100 client that sustained me for decades as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And then at the end.
And how did you meet them?
I was speaking somewhere. Someone was in the audience from that company, and they were like, hey, you need to come over to our company and talk to our leaders. Whenever they spoke to them, next thing you know, we have this full-blown training program that covers everything from selling on eBay to getting your certification and so on. So we offered them everything in terms of training, corporate training. And I did that for decades. And then there came a time when I started to think about retirement. Like, do I want to do this into retirement? No, I don't. And that's when I decided that, hey, if you are a speaker, it's not age dependent. It's not, it's not like we want somebody that's 25.
Right.
So it's kind of age agnostic, if you will. Mm-hmm. And if you have a book, that's residual income.
Yeah.
The thing about my book, the other thing we're doing is we're going to chunk it up and sell it a chapter at a time because maybe somebody doesn't want to read the whole book. We're going to translate it in different languages. It's going to be an audio. So this one book is like the piece of this part of my life that's going to open the doors to a lot of different things. I've done the research in transformational leadership, so I'm considered an expert in that space. Mm-hmm. So that's what I use to sell myself. I also teach at Forbes School of Business, so I'm a professor there. And again, age agnostic. So I'm looking for things that as you move through life, you got to know that this is what fits me now. I speak to young people, of course, and I also speak to older people, but I know what my lane is.
Yeah.
And I know where I can have the best value and the best impact, and that's what I focus on.
That's really, really good. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is, and I appreciate everything that you've shared about your journey and how long it took for you to really develop as a leader and as an author, as a speaker, as a thought leader, and as an expert. Yeah. And I'd love to talk a little bit about leadership, because that is your expertise. And you mentioned something about how leaders have gone from good to bad throughout history.
Yes.
And I wonder, because we have a lot of influencers watching, and influence, first off, influencing is like a big thing.
Yes.
Right now, but how does that transition happen, and what are some things to look for, like on your path to leadership? Actually, let's take it a different way. So first, I want to go in 3 parts. First, how do you even get influence, right? Mm-hmm. How do you even get people to follow you as a leader? Because I know there's people watching who are like, I don't even got a community. I need a community. Ain't nobody trying to follow me, and I need them to, for whatever reasons. I want to talk about how to get influence. Then I want to talk about how to ensure your intentions are pure. And then I want to talk about things to look out for so that leadership doesn't go bad. Because I do think people start off good and then it goes a little south. So first part, how do you even get people to trust you and follow you as a leader?
Yeah. So I'm glad you say trust and follow, because they're mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. I can trust you and I follow you, or I can follow you and I trust you. So what you want to do is, it all starts, you begin within, right?
Yeah.
You begin with work on yourself. So I think when followers is a buzz. How many followers and all this? I'm not really into that. I don't even know how many followers I have. But I feel like here's the mindset I have. If I can impact one person to transform their lives, it's time well spent.
Yeah.
So you think about, it's like when you think about your customer, like Walmart, they think about their customer, right? The customer might be a woman between 35 and 40. She got 2 kids. She works. She makes X income. She buys her clothes from this store. They've got this whole profile on who their customer is. You got to know that about yourself, and then you got to know that about who you want to influence. So you have to do a sustainable work in yourself, because in terms of the third part of your question, you will go left if the foundation is not solid. If you see how solid this iceberg is below the tip of it, just to see that little tip, and little I mean relatively, but the mass underneath it is what's sustaining it. So you want to make sure you do the work. You want to know who you are. One of the things I ask leaders is, what type of leader are you? And then what type of leader do you want to be? Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not. So you got to know, this is who I want to be, and do the work to be that person. That is regardless of any fellowship or anyone's listening to you. It's the work you do in the dark, under the water, that nobody sees. Work on yourself. To influence people, you've got to know what you have that's of value to the people that you want to influence. So they got tons of tips about that. You know, if your audience is, I don't know, stay-at-home moms, if you will, maybe some laundry tricks. I'm making up stuff as I go.
Yeah.
If it's entrepreneurs, one of the things that with entrepreneurs, you're on a shoestring budget. So you might talk about free tools that you can use to do your accounting, or to do your marketing and so forth. So you provide value. And initially, as we said before, it doesn't mean that you're getting monies back, of fellowship back, but you're making a mark out there. So you want to provide a value. Find your market, which sometimes it's a niche. One of the things you don't want to say is, my market is everybody. It's not. There's a niche, and it's very specific. Female entrepreneurs, women who want to grow their business to the next level, women who want to have a sustainable business so they can leave an inheritance, if you will, to their children and children's children. Know your market, and then know what value you're bringing to the market. So influencers are leaders. It's just a new fancy word, because you don't have a title. And I want to say that having a leadership title doesn't make you a leader either. Everyone's a leader, because we are 3-part beings, right? We're spirit, soul, and body. My spirit, for the most part, leads the other 2. So there's a part of me that's leading myself, the spirit part of me. Sometimes my emotion leads, but there's always leadership happening in every single person. Even a child, when a child decides to throw a tantrum, his little emotions are leading. So,
and you said 3 parts: spirit, soul, and body.
Yeah, all of us are like that. So get in touch with those 3 parts, and your spirit, hint, should be leading. The spirit is the one that's divinely connected to the one who knows everything.
Now, what's the difference between spirit and soul?
So spirit is the part of you that is eternal. It's the part of you that it's self-contained. Like you can't make it better or worse. It is what it is. Your soul, mind, will, and emotions is a part of you that can change, right? Because you can change your mind. You can change your emotions. I love you not.
So emotions are within your soul.
Yeah. And then the body is this meat box that we all have. Yeah. This is the one that that's the least important part of you. The spirit is the most important part of you, because when you come to the end of yourself, that's your soul, your mind. When you don't know what to do and you hit a brick wall, you want to tap into something that knows more, and that's your spirit. So your spirit knows everything. And the more you know your spirit, the more you know. So I'm from that school of thought. So you want to make sure that you understand yourself in that way, so that your foundation is broad and wide and deep. So whatever you build, it'll be sustainable. Now, if you don't know yourself, and in terms of the third part of your question is, you're gonna get caught up in, I'm making X amount of money now, so now I feel like I can buy my way out of things, and I can pay people off, and I can pay people to do things and say things. Or now the followers have influenced your ego now, and you don't have anybody to check you. People that go left don't really have people to check them. They surround themselves with yes people.
That's so good. So we've talked about how to get the influence.
Yeah.
We're about to talk about how it goes left. What are the signs that the intentions are pure? So what does a good leader look like?
Yeah.
So let's say they do what you say. They have figured out what they have of value. They've learned how to communicate that. Now people are starting to follow them, starting to trust them.
Yeah.
So they're trusting and following them. So then what is a good leader? Like what is your definition of a good leader?
A good leader is someone that is a reluctant leader, because a lot of people want to be leaders and they don't understand the responsibility that it takes. There's a lot of selflessness in being a leader.
100%.
In that you're putting others, you have a calling to lead. It's not something that I'm going to be a leader, because it's very difficult, because it's a lot of self-sacrifice involved in it, where you got to put the followers, the followership, the constituents, the members, the family ahead of your own feelings, if you will. You had to do that. You've got to be, I remember during the pandemic, people were crazy. And the one thing they were looking for is leaders. What do we do?
Right.
What do we do, leaders? And you got to know.
Right. No one knew. Yeah. But leaders were trying to figure out, like, pray, child, pray. We don't know what's happening.
God. Now, I'm praying too. So that in crisis, that's where leaders, or authentic transformational leaders, really shine. And by the way, sidebar, authentic transformational leadership is an evergreen type of leadership. Withstands disruption, crisis, whatever.
That's so good.
So the ATLs were doing much the same thing they were doing before, during, and after the pandemic. They didn't have to pivot.
Right.
So the servant part of it, you got to really place value. Your value should not be on the money first. Yes, you need money. You need money to live. This is where we are. Don't hear me saying that. But if you do what you're supposed to do, the money will come. If you provide value, if you provide that trust, that space of, now you're an expert and I'm going to trust you to do the work, to bring me the information, the money will come. So the ego, what I see is a lot of leaders, and as I was telling you, Ashley, like 2 spaces where pseudo transformational leadership happens.
Pseudo transformational leadership is not good.
It's not good.
That's
pseudo means fake.
Yeah.
Where you talk the talk, but you don't walk the talk.
Yeah. So it's like you're basically it can fool people though. So you look like you're a real leader, but you're not.
But you're not, no. Because you can be, you see the, and I love rappers, nothing against rappers, but you see them, with all the stuff, and it's like, okay, rap, okay, now take this down, get out of my house, and all this other stuff. So it's not sustainable. So they're talking the talk, they're not walking the talk. The leader, the ATL, will walk the talk. So they have people to check them. What I see with a lot of leaders, they surround themselves with yes people. So nothing that I'm doing is wrong. And if you are in touch with yourself, you say to yourself, I'm doing stuff that's wrong. How come no one's checking me? Mm-hmm. So you have that high EQ, that emotional quotient, that you've got to have that if you want to be an influencer. You got to understand your emotions, how they work, and understand your market, how their emotions work. So if you don't have people checking you, you're going to continue along the path of thinking you're okay. And it's like boiling the frog. You do it a little bit at a time. Next thing you know, the frog is in full boil. So the ego, the illusion of power, I'm going to be honest, money opens doors.
Yep.
If I want things done, if I want a good seat, you can't find any seat at all in the restaurant.
Right.
How about now?
Right.
Yeah. So yes, it works. However, you take that too far. When now you're paying people off to not say something or to say something. We see that a lot in politics and in the media. It's a money grab. So you don't want to get caught in that, because that's a dead end, soulless type of existence. At the end of the day, you're going to be empty and miserable and have a lot of regrets. So
now, you've studied some of the diabolical leaders of our time.
Yes.
And I wonder, in your studies, what were warning signs that if people were paying attention, they could have seen Hitler before he came? What were some warning signs of, like, if they were looking for like a cult leader or someone that was like inauthentic, what were the warning signs that people could have seen?
Yeah.
If they were really paying attention.
Yeah. In hindsight, it's 2020, right?
Right.
So someone like Hitler, we have current pseudo transformational leaders like today.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about Hitler. He came along after the war, and he was saying good things economically, like, let's rebuild Germany. Let's make it a world power. Let's get jobs. Let's, this other stuff that people that are in the state of being desperate and downtrodden, he said what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So he led with that.
Yeah.
And then he did some of that stuff. And then they trusted him so much that they stopped vetting what he was saying and doing. And that's what happens in politics, in families, in religion, in the media. You now, as an intelligent human being, you stop vetting what the person is saying.
So it was incremental.
It's incremental.
Now,
it's a transformation.
Now,
but too bad.
When you look at him and some of these like pseudo transformational leaders, do they start off with diabolical intentions, or do diabolical intentions get justified? Like they sell themselves on the bad stuff.
Well, you talk about it, because that sounds like that's what you're doing. You're talking about it. That's the answer, what you said.
It's because like when you were talking about it earlier, I was like, I wonder if, and I always wonder this, and I see this a lot in church, right? So with the Hitler thing, I don't even know if, I don't know. But like when I look at like leaders of big church congregations, and they start off amazing, they start off going after people, they start off helping the people, and then something happens, and I just wonder, like, what was there something that they should have picked up on? Like, okay, I need to get checked now. Like, something ain't working out.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing it.
And if you don't know yourself, you won't get checked out. But if you're saying,
so they didn't do that inner work that beneath the...
Yeah, they didn't do it. Yeah. And the work that they did was not enough to sustain where they're going. So if you're thinking big, think bigger, because whatever you're doing now has to sustain that. So one of the things I mentioned is that the adulation, and now you got membership, and you got people that's calling your name. It gets to your head. I do not believe that a human being can exist, can tolerate unlimited power, unlimited money. We're not built like that, because we'll go nuts. So the power now gets to your head. You have people that you're paying to do stuff, and you start to, or you don't see them as people anymore. You see them as little things that you move around. So if you know yourself and you see yourself start doing that, I would take a step back. The accountability is not there. Who in your life is checking you when you're doing crazy things?
Right.
Yeah, who's checking you?
And that's so good because it's like, it's interesting because when people think about, and you all, cash leads, this is a good conversation. Hopefully y'all are taking notes. Because literally what I want to have this conversation here because I train experts to gain influence.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and they think, like, people are speaking ready cash, I'm gonna come and get money. No, you're gonna get power too. You see what I'm saying?
Difference.
So, but I want sustainable influence and impact that is good for people.
Right.
Not diabolical, secret things are going down the hill. So I wonder, I like this conversation because if you're a true leader, you're totally leaned in because on the one hand, you do want to get the influence. On the other hand, you don't want to hurt anyone.
You don't want to hurt anybody. That's the worst thing is when you know, because I think about children. Because when I look at children, and part of my research is like when you look at a little child, 2 years old or a baby, whatever, in a million years, you would never think that person's going to be Hitler.
Right.
You don't. And something has happened. So when you affect people, you got to be intentional because people have affected that young man that he had something in him that he wanted to now conquer other people and put other people underneath his feet. Or you have done something to the young woman, so now she does not prize her body, so she feels like her only asset is what she got here. Somebody did something to her, whether you had a title as a leader or not, you did something to that person, and that person now is living a lifetime of that. To me, that's big enough for me to take a step back and don't even, let me not even partake.
And that's why most people don't eat. So to your point, I talk to a lot of incredible people who I'm like, man, I truly have this belief system that if real experts got just a little bit louder, a lot of the world problems wouldn't even exist. But because the loudest person typically always gets the mic, we can't hear the people who know more than us.
Yes.
And so
that's so true.
But the people who I interact with, who are the most brilliant, most incredible, most amazing, they won't, like, they're like, I literally talked to someone the other day, brilliant guy. And we were talking, I was like, man, you should share this. You should talk about this. He was like, no, because that stuff y'all be having where people just come up to you crying and they like want to hug you. And I just can't. He's like, I don't want that level of impact on people. And so I like what you're saying because it sounds like the hope in all this is if you study emotional intelligence, if you study leadership, if you read the book, you can avoid some of those pitfalls that are holding real experts back from actually taking their place in the front. Hey, are you a member of the Speak Your Way to Cash family? If so, what's up? Thank you so much for checking out this podcast episode. I would love to give you the first part of the Speak Your Way to Cash book for completely free, instant download. All you have to do is go to the link underneath this video or go to speakyourwaytocashbook.com and download your free copy of the first part of the Speak Your Way to Cash book. Look, it will show you how to start your journey and start landing those 5- and 6-figure contracts. Do not miss this deal. The book is absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to hear how it's helping you speak your way to cash.
And what you said about the gentleman, what's interesting is that when we dream, our dreams are self-contained. You think that he's thinking about someone coming up to him in the state that he's in now, but the transformation is going to continue as you grow. You have the capacity that you need to sustain the growth. You can't
because you build
like
muscle
this.
Along the way.
Yes, it's a transformation. It's not a change. You're thinking right now, I can't, but you got to be open because you know less than you don't know. What you're going to know then, you don't know it now. So you got to be open. And the thing about a leader is not something that you can manage on your own. You need help.
You need God.
You need that. Yes, you need God. You need someone that knows less than you know. You know someone that knows more than you know.
100%.
Because you know less than you don't know. And that's the part of you, the spirit that connects to that person that knows everything. And if he has a plan for you, then he's got the ways, the means, the hows, the whys to execute that plan. Get out of his way. Because he's got a purpose and he's got things to do. He's got people to touch. And if somebody's snotting over you, maybe that's the price you got to pay for that.
Right.
But you'll be able to sustain it.
You'll be able to sustain it.
You'll be able to sustain it.
That's so good. Because even like for you all, for the cash leads at home, like I literally remember I was telling my husband used to be an assistant pastor, and he went to seminary, and at one point he was going to be the pastor, and I told him, I was like, I don't know, because I just don't like people making me their God. And I don't want to go into ministry, and they're going to make me their God, and it's just like too much. Like, I'm not your God. Get the God, get the God up there. Learn Jesus and God, and like get the relationship on your own, you know? Yeah. And I did not like that. I really did. I was just very concerned about idolatry and people making me an idol. And it was the biggest concern. I was just like, I don't know, because I don't like that. I don't like the weight of that. I don't like the responsibility of that. And I'm human. So you make me your God, I mess up, and you all...
Then you're pseudo transformational, because that's where it takes. Then you start believing it. You know, you start believing that. And I feel the same way you do. I want to. Part of my leadership is to make other people leaders, so they're sustainable. I don't want you to. I'm trying to point you to a bigger source. That's what I'm doing. So don't look at me, because the other thing about, you know, you mentioned pastors, and as I said, the biggest incidence of PTL is with the religious community. Is that you're a human. And you need to start acting like a human from day one. Yeah. One of the things that people do when they're puffed up with power and pride is like, I am better than you.
I'm perfect.
And when I'm talking, I'm saying, you do this and you do that and y'all. And it should be we, no one. What I like about grace, and I know it's not a church service, grace leverages everybody. Because it says it's not what you do, it's who you know. So it's not like I'm going to church every Sunday, I'm tithing, I do this and that, and nothing to do with it. It's because you know Jesus. That's it. That's it. That's the great equalizer. So nobody has any room to be better than anybody. That's one of my pet peeves, when people have more money, or they look a certain way, or they drive certain cars or whatever, and they start to think that they're better than other people. And the imagery I get is when you're old and naked and afraid, because that stuff doesn't matter. Or when you're sick, you know that when you're sick, you will give everything you have to feel better.
Yeah.
And we're all the same. Nobody's better than anybody. And you hear me say that over and over again. No one's better than anybody else. There, but for the grace of God, go I. And the PTLs start to believe the hype. And what people do, they'll hype you up because they have nothing better to do.
Because they have nothing.
Hype you up. They make you their God. And you know, you're this and that, and you're coming down. Remember that.
But if you believe their applause, you're gonna have to believe their critique too, because it comes.
Yes, you gotta be open to that as well.
You have to.
You want to. I love surveys. I love to get surveys. I love to get feedback. You gotta be confrontational as a leader. If you're the person that doesn't like confrontation, in the moment, don't let it linger. Then you need to do some more study. You gotta assess yourself to see
that's a big point.
Makeup that you have, right?
The confrontation piece.
Yeah.
And I tell my audience, you have to be strong enough to be disliked.
Yeah.
There is literally not a leader. Even Jesus, he was literally selling eternal life. And people were like, oh no, crucify him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if he can't get everybody to like him, Yeah. So I really appreciate you breaking this down. Like we could talk about this all day, easily, and it's been a riveting discussion, and it's one that I really don't think we could have had with anyone else, based on your expertise, the study that you have. So I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with the community.
Thank you.
We have a segment that we do here called Act Your Way to Cash. It's like action your way to cash.
Oh boy, everybody's looking at me smiling. What's happening right now? What's going on?
So Act Your Way to Cash is when you tell our audience, based on your expertise, one thing they can do within the next 24 hours that will help their business grow. So what would that thing be based on your expertise?
Okay. I'm spitballing here. All right. 3 P's. Priority, people, and I forgot the third one. It'll come to me though. First of all, you've got to be free of people. Be free of what people think about what you're going to do. As Ashley said, everyone's not going to like you. You could be the most likable person in the world. Someone's going to be like, I can't stand you because you're breathing. So get over that. So once you get over that people bondage and being bondage to people, being bondage to your purpose. I'm on a purpose. I got a mission, and I'm not looking left and right. This is where I need to go. And you want to make the priority that you bring value. So tomorrow, today, the next 5 minutes, prioritize what value am I bringing to that person out there? Not the 10,000 people, not the 20,000, not the million, but there's one person out there. I want to bring value to that one person. What does that value look like? So that's what I would say.
That is really good. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the Speak Your Way to Cash show. Let our audience know where they can find you, where they can get your book. That's your camera. You can speak directly to that camera. You can hold your book and let them know how they can support you in any way possible.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. So the book is called You Know Less Than You Don't Know. Transformation, not change, is key to success, because they are different. The book is available everywhere. If you want to go to Barnes & Noble, to Google Books, if you want to go to Amazon, it's everywhere. It's globally distributed, so it's everywhere. What I have in the book, just to give you a little insight on the book, I do talk about the difference between change and transformation and why they're not the same. And I do include my interviews with leaders. Like one of my interviews is with this CIO that was heading the vaccine making during COVID and what that looked like. And then I have my case study that I did on transformational leadership. And at the end of each chapter, I have reflective discourse where you ask yourself questions about the chapter. So just to give you an idea of what's in the book, I try to think forward so that the book is evergreen. So we got things like engaging your stakeholders, walking the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility talk, women in leadership. That's a great chapter. Christian leaders in the metaverse. That's a whole other story about technology and Christians being late adopters, but it's here, so get with it. So then I talk about leaders, past, present, and future. Now, before you're a leader, you're a person. So this book, Love is a Verb, Transform on Purpose, is your journey into finding out what your divine purpose is and you loving yourself more than you love other people. So we kind of dispel the myth, like, you got to love people first. It doesn't say that anywhere. It doesn't say, it says love as, that means they're on the same platform, right? So it's a transformational journey into finding out yourself and you getting connected to the one that created you and find out what his purpose is. So both books available everywhere books are sold.
Incredible. Thank you guys so very much for joining us on the Speak Your Way to Cash show. And as always, keep the energy high and excuses low. Until next time, we will see you cash leads later.
Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low. Energy high, excuses low.